So hello and welcome to Just The Way It Is. My name is Carl and this is episode 10 of a series of videos all about multi-strada ownership, maintenance, servicing, modifications, changes, brakes, comfort, a whole range of things. Go back and watch them from the beginning or go to the channel. So what are we talking about today? The link is talking about exhaust valves or exhaust flaps. So I just want to give you a little bit of information about what it is when they talk about these things on the forum and what your options are, because there are three ways of doing it, and what are the benefits and what are the negatives. And there are some negatives and there are also some benefits. So you have to decide for yourself whether this is worth doing. So let's start with the basics. So this is the valve that they're talking about on the forums that you remove, possibly remove, or you delete its operation from within the exhaust. So just let me explain this. Basic principles are the same. So if you imagine this butterfly here is in effect the same thing that you're going to find in your exhaust. And if you watch, if I close the valve, it restricts the flow of air through that venturi. On the exhaust, it's restricting the amount of flow through the exhaust system. So just as in the carburetor, you're going to find this basic operating principle in the exhaust. So the control of this is determined by the ECU and the engine speed and the vehicle speed and other conditions, and it will determine whether the valve is going to be closed or partly open or slowly opening or fully open. So when they talk about the exhaust valve or the exhaust flap delete, they're talking about removing this butterfly, which is what I've done on my bike. And then even if this operating arm is still operating, with this valve removed, there's no more restriction. So the question is, why do it in the first place? Well, the exhaust flap is there for several reasons. The manufacturers talk about emissions regulations and emissions reasons why it's on there. And to a certain degree, there's a validity to what they say. It does control the amount of exhaust gas that's flowing through the exhaust system and the speed at which it can escape. If you go down the route and choose to remove the valve or delete it, you're going to gain more noise. So how much noise? Well, it's noticeable. And if you've ever had one of these on a DCAT, you've removed the catalytic converter and you've got an Acura on there or a Termi on there, they're really noisy, they're really loud, it's too much for the road. So this valve is put in there to open and close at different times, depending on where your throttle is, depending on what engine speed you are, and depending on what speed you're riding at. And that's all controlled by the ECU. I don't have the specification, there's a really interesting video all about noise emissions and the ride-by test that manufacturers have to pass. So they have to go past in between 2 points and measure the sound emitted by your motorcycle. That's the complete sound. So that's engine noises, road tyre noise, and exhaust noise, and it has to be within a certain level at a certain speed over a certain distance over a certain time. So the manufacturers are restricted, and as the new emission regulations come in, they're getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So really that's what it's there for, is to reduce the noise of your motorcycle. So what are the benefits of removing the valve? Well, actually, one, if you want to create a bit more noise, they're definitely louder with this removed. If, like me, you've ever wasted any money buying a Terminoni N-Can for a standard exhaust system, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. I bought one used off of eBay, put it on, looked lovely, I was really excited, went for a ride, no difference, none whatsoever. I tried it for another ride and decided for the money I'd paid for it, I'm gaining something optically that looks good, but there was no increase in performance, none whatsoever, and the noise was, I couldn't tell any difference. Maybe a slight difference in tone. It just wasn't worth it. I put it back on eBay and I actually made more money than I'd paid for it, and I got rid of it and put the standard one back on. And then sometime after that, I decided to do the exhaust valve modification. So I think that this combined with the N-Can or a different N-Can would actually make quite a bit of difference, but I didn't get a chance to experience that. So moving forward, what does this do? Well, one of the really nice benefits is you can do two things. You can either remove it, which is what I physically done. It's held on with two little tiny, they're actually brass screws, and then they're brazed onto a vertical rod that runs through the center of the exhaust. So you have your valve and you have your two screws, they're screwed in tight and then they're brazed on so that they don't rattle, vibrate and fall off. So if you're going to remove this, you're going to need something like a Dremel. They're brilliant little devices, and you're going to need to grind off the brazing, people call it welding, same thing, that secures the nut through the butterfly onto the shaft. And you'll need to grind that off and then they'll come undone and they'll come out. Also, if you do it carefully enough, you'll end up with screws that you can, should you wish to reuse them to put this valve back, but obviously you need to have some brazing skills. You can do a delete via the ECU. You buy a module, I think in the UK and in Europe and in America, it's all about the same price, dollars, euros, pounds. It's somewhere between 50 and 70. It's a module that you mount to your bike. So that's a non-permanent way to modify this. So what are the benefits? Well, the benefits are at low speed, you get improved throttle response, and it's really noticeable. It really is noticeable. So what I mean by that is the previous video, episode 9, I talked about the gearing change and how for 2-up or low speed riding, you can make a big difference to how the Ducati is going through villages and controlling your throttle at low speed. This modification adds to that. It improves low speed throttle response, but it does increase the noise levels. It's not excessive. It doesn't make your bike suddenly go from quite restrained to being really noisy, and I actually quite enjoy it. But what I did think on the first series of curves that I came to, which is in a bit of a valley where there's some rock face on either side, I thought there was a bike behind me, and there wasn't any bike behind me. It was just so much more noise coming out of the exhaust at at the same RPM that I was used to, that I thought there was a bike behind me. However, I've got to be honest, there are some people in the village in which I live that are in the bike club that have referred to me as Carl with the noisy Ducati. So it does make a difference. It's not really excessive, but you can notice the difference. But the difference in performance, especially in the mid-range, so I'm talking 4,000, 3,500 actually, where you first start to notice the difference, 3,500 to 5,500. I mean, after that, it's going like stink at that point anyway, but in that low range, removing the valve makes quite a difference. There are several ways you can do it. I've removed it. So I hope that helps. Was it worth doing? Definitely. Those two things combined together really make slow speed riding through the city, through the villages, much easier to control. There are benefits in performance throughout the whole rev range with the gearing change. That's consistent all the way through the rev range and all the gears. Much, much better. 6th gear is much more usable. And I find that this modification, in addition to the gearing change, was well worth it. So I hope that helps. I'll see you in the next video.